Hi, and this is the introduction to my stretching program. And the idea is basically not to add more work, but to make the work more targeted. So instead of just adding a whole bunch of strength sets to get some of the results that you might be able to kind of hack at, otherwise, I'm going to try to do that with long length isometrics training, which looks like stretching, but it's a little bit different because there's actually a strong contraction in the end range. And so, improving how efficient training is with this program is a given. It is something that is going to come. It'll come with time. Anyway, it should help with being able to move in deeper ranges of motion than you probably would be already with the way training normally is cycled around things like push ups and just passive stretching. So, a lot of the times it doesn't build efficient muscle in the deepest ranges of motion. Maybe fairly deep, but this one emphasizes it. So also, and I would say number one is reducing the unnecessary recovery demands from the other types of training. That is kind of what I'm saying here. I'm trying not to add too much load by doing all these other sorts of training. I'm trying to hack away at it by getting those results in those specific ranges of motion. So it's a lot more about the muscle length training than it is about just adding in more sets and more volume, etc. So again, this uses long length isometric training for strategic volume allocation. So strategically planned programming to focus your valued effort. Sometimes in between sets of strength training even. So if it's something along the lines of 6 RPE of a resistance stretch or a long length isometric stretch, then you could add it into an in between set of, again, push ups or squats or something like that. You don't actually have to worry too much about your cardio being taxed because it's only getting done one muscle at a time, and so it's not hard enough to wear you out. And so how it's set up is the largest muscles, let's say lats and quads and that sort of thing, get done, and it would be the math behind it. I use the tier system starting from 4 and I count down to 1/2, so it goes 4, 3, 2, 1, and 1/2. And so if you multiply the RPE by the tier, then that would be the amount of seconds that you would spend. And so on muscle like the quads or the lats, I would want to hit them at least 6 to 8 times per week. So that would look like maybe a couple sets on the one, so whatever it was, a quad or a lat, a couple of sets, maybe 3 times per week to make it a little more realistic and still have a recovery cycle that is appropriate as opposed to a day by day sort of thing. It's a little bit less hard to predict what goes on in the day, and you could be needing that extra recovery sometimes. That's one sort of theory I have right now. And anyway, it is good to cycle in recovery like this. Okay, so I would say to hover it around the RPE of 7. So it's tier 4 and we're hovering around 7. That means if it gets done 3 times per week, one day might be 6, and then you could do that in between the resistance, or yeah, the resistance training you'd be doing. The other two would be 7 and 8, and then they could be done on off training days, so not strength training oriented days. And that's pretty much it. So I just need to kind of contrast that, of course, muscles aren't always the same size as a lat or a quad. So the next one would be tier 3, which would be something more like a bicep or something. And all of these are in my program. They have the appropriate times, and this is how the math works. So this is what I was thinking of when I factored in exactly how much time for a stretch. And it's pretty important to say here, though, that this one is still done the 6 to 8 times per week, and on and on. So about 3 days per week, you try a day of 6, a day of 7, a day of 8. But then when the muscles get even smaller than that, let's say rotators, so this kind of movement, or your leg rotators, or your neck even, it's kind of these sorts of movements. It typically would be done with a 1 set per week. And same thing with maintenance for all those other large muscles. If you were doing them, it would probably be something more like 1 set per week. And of course, I mean times 3. So 3 sets per week, 1 set per day instead of the 2. Whereas you're trying for hypertrophy with the 2 sets times 3 at harder RPEs, and not trying that. You're trying to maintain or just do a smaller muscle group, 2, 1, or like I say, half, which is something more like a finger segment or something like that. And that's how the program was built. And so, again, you can do them between strength sets, and that makes it a little bit more efficient too. A lot of programs have things like these very, very strictly separated on different days, but you could get a lot of stuff done between your strength sets that you might not think you could get otherwise. So it's also time efficient as well in this regard. Then, just to reiterate that the goal is to explore how much recovery cost could be diminished while still exploring a hypertrophy stimulus and while not eliminating strength training. And thank you for your exploring this idea with me, and may your training go well. Thank you. Bye bye.